then Russia. Well, actually, let me do Russia first, and then Iran. Why is the administration not utilizing the full range of sanctions that Congress passed last year in CATSA, notably the sanctions on Russian energy projects and against Russian arms exports?
Thank you, Ranking Member Engel. I think I'll take the Russia questions, and Assistant Secretary Singh will.
Could you put your microphone a little closer,
yes,
please?
sir.
Thank you.
So again, appreciate the chance to be here. I've had the opportunity every single time you've invited me to testify. I've been pleased to accept and appear before your committee.
And we appreciate it.
And it's great to be here. We look to your support on these issues. Look, on Russia, the numbers speak for themselves. The Obama administration imposed 550 sanctions over its 8 years in office. In the time we've been in office, we've imposed 223 sanctions. We've imposed 3 times as many sanctions on Russia for their cyber-related activities in our first 20 months as compared to all 8 years of the previous administration, 50% more on blocking actions, the same number of banks that we've gone after that they went after, 14 times as many Russians sanctioned for North Korea-related behaviors. And on top of that, as I described in my opening remarks, the oligarchs that we have targeted are the big fish. They are the inner circle around Putin. The message has been sent very clearly by the Treasury Department that there will be consequences and costs, including personal costs imposed for the intolerable and unacceptable continued efforts to manipulate our electoral processes. We will not tolerate this. We will not agree to it, and there will be continued consequences.
What about the sanctions on Russian energy projects and Russian arms exports? Those really, the full range of sanctions that Congress passed have not been implemented.
So, Ranking Member, you're putting your finger on a very important issue. We have designated a few months ago Rosoboronexport, which is the arms sale entity of the Russian government. It's the group that arranges all of the big sales. And we also designated their bank, the bank Rosoboronexport controls, which has made it very difficult for them to engage in a number of transactions. We are, together with the Department of State, following very closely Russian sales pitches regarding the S-400 systems and other weaponry systems, and we've made incredibly clear to a number of countries around the world that purchasing those systems would expose their country under CATSA to possible additional sanctions.
Okay, thank you. Let me ask a quick Iran question. If any of the major buyers of Iranian crude oil, which is China, India, Japan, South Korea, and Europe, if they refuse to sharply cut their purchases, are we really prepared to cut their banks off from the global banking system, which is the penalty under the U.S. sanctions? Are we really prepared for that? Ancillary question with that is, how would that contribute to our goal of constraining Iran, and how would it affect our relations with these countries, who are generally, some of whom are our friends?
Thank you, Ranking Member Engel, for that question. In response, we are prepared to take the most serious actions possible on Iran. We need to demonstrate to the Iranian regime that we will not tolerate its development of a nuclear program for illicit purposes. You know, as Assistant Secretary Billingsley has mentioned, the flawed Iran nuclear deal was determined not to be the right vehicle to address the range of Iran's malign behavior. We are having conversations with our allies, and our goal is to get purchase of Iranian crude oil down to 0 by November 5th. That's a critical goal for us. We are talking with all of our allies, including the countries that you mentioned, helping them to understand that the only way that we can achieve this global goal of Iran's nuclear program not commencing is through partnership and cooperation with our allies, as you have indicated. So we are working with them. We're trying to explain to them that the bigger picture here is we need to work together on putting this pressure onto Iran, and the sales of oil are a critical way to do that. We are prepared to take the strongest actions possible on people who will not assist us in complying with this new range of sanctions that we are putting back into place. I also wanted to address your earlier question about cooperation with allies. Secretary Pompeo and Secretary Mnuchin have directed teams from the State Department and Treasury Department to travel together. We visited over 30 countries so far and sat down with our government counterparts and talked through with them our withdrawal from the JCPOA. We're trying to help them understand what it means for them. We are trying to engage in all kinds of diplomatic conversations to make sure that our allies don't feel like we are going it alone. We're explaining to them that we need to work as a global community to address Iran's range of malign behavior. So I just want to assure you that it is a priority for Secretary Pompeo that we do this on a basis of engaging with our allies.
Let me ask you one final question. China is Iran's top oil purchaser. Will they get to zero by November?
We are working with all countries, including China, to get them to zero. We've made it clear that unless we act as a global community, Iran's behavior is not going to change. The JCPOA was not going to change Iran's behavior. We have a new strategy, a new list of behaviors that we are going to insist that they take, and we need cooperation from the global community in order to achieve this goal.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Joe Wilson, South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Secretary Singh and Secretary Billingsley. Thank you for your